How you guys doing? Hey, Dominic. I am actually 1 minute early. I was a little late earlier today, so I'm all caught up. I'm not caught up. I wish I were caught up. Um, Let me check. Is the sound and video working okay, Dom? Great. Hey, Killer, how you doing? Eric, good to see you. John, Seth, hello. Von Cruel, good. 2 in 1 day. Well, live streams, I always have two on Saturday. So my schedule has been all messed up because I went on a vacation, and so I'm back now. I'll try to get everything straightened out. Two live ones on Saturday, one that a totally unplanned one, usually on Tuesday. So those are three, and then there's another one that's for Larique on Sunday, and then on Friday there's a video and also one on Monday. These are recorded videos. So there it is. My public relations firm has told me. Hey, Junior, how are things in Michigan? Hello there, Mr. Brian, the Armin Strom owner. Boy, that watch, what a surprise. I've been eyeing that thing. I think you just saved me from temptation, Brian. Somebody's got to all the time. Hi, Planet Earth. Morning. Are you in Australia? Busy. No kidding. Hey, Jose. Okay. Wait a minute. Looks like we got no. That's right. We got the right number. I think look at boy. We got more Jose's than we usually have. Okie doke. What I wanted to talk about today was sort of a point where, yeah. Did you negotiate, Brian? You're familiar, Planet Earth. Believe me. Good. That's good. That's all I wanted to hear, Brian. Anybody who doesn't negotiate, you might as well just take the extra money and throw it away. Um, I don't know. It's something. Was it Gravity Earth? The one, Brian? Killer wants to know. I've been going the opposite direction, less expensive, more expensive. Yeah, that's what we were talking about this morning, Von Cruel. Yeah, that's I tell you, usually when you build up, I was sort of trying to think of a situation where you let's say you inherited an expensive wine. Oh wait, no. Wanted the manual wine. It's the manual water. Okay, thank you. That's even better. It's a manual wine. Um, okay. I assume you're not gonna be selling. Okay, let's talk about going from sort of a few expensive watches that we'll say it's an inheritance. You get a really expensive watch, you like it, but you're afraid to wear it. I swear, this is when I first got my Patek Philippe Calatrava. I was afraid to wear it. I really was. I'd wear it around the house or something, but I was told, don't wear it. So, great. Okay, HRM. A ton of Rolex folks eventually sell a piece and buy 2 or 3 more affordable and interesting watches instead. They they poor they're picking on Rolex. There's something I was getting some images of Rolex for the announcement, made little bitty ones, and the thing about them, there's some big announcement I guess they're having on Monday on, April 1st. A lot of people thought it was a joke. They may be serious, and it still could be a joke. We'll see what they have. Hi, Lee. How you doing? I was just, checking my, Japanese elms. I hope they both come back because I really like them. I'm definitely picking on Rolex for 2025. Oh, they're sticking Saloxi and everything. I thought that might happen. I'm disappointed to hear that, but I'm sure that the bean counters are now happy. That means less service and I'll tell you, if I want to improve my exact timing, I'll get a smartwatch. Or either that, or even better, I'll get an old quartz. That'll out time them. I took my my Patek, my FP Journe on my trip with me because there was a sort of a off thing between the time that Europe switched to daylight savings, whereas we already had, and I was afraid this is my dual time hemispheres from Parmigiani, and I was afraid, oh, I'll get things all messed up, and so I thought I'll just take it, and wherever I am, I'll set it to the correct time of the day. Anyway, that worked out great. That thing is that's a good, just a good solid watch. Okay, it's a little problem. Hey, David. Looks like Rolex is about to release a mass produced movement with a natural escapement. Unfortunately, it looks like it may also come with a silicon. Yeah, that's what I understand. Well, yeah, if they want to do it, it's their watch company. They can do whatever they want. And it's our collections, and we can do whatever we want. A lot of times people forget that. I've seen these people like, oh, this is what they're giving us. They're not giving you anything. They're selling something. And it's important to understand that it's your money, your decisions, and the better informed, the better the decision. And you'll be a happy collector. But now they're coming out with a natural escapement, which is a neat thing. And then it's sort of like putting training wheels on a bicycle. Hi, Roy. What are your thoughts on blank pawn? Well, the 1315, isn't that it? Oh boy. I'm not sure what to think of it just in terms of the movement, Roy. Is that because at one time when Swatch bought blank pawn, their movement was done by Frederick Piguet, and then they sort of put them both together. And then Swatch started loading them up with silicon, and so I don't know whether they did that or not. Now, some perfectly good Patek Philippe movements, they simply kept everything the same except they added a silicon hairspring to some of their movements. You can tell because they have a PP stamp instead of a Geneva seal stamp on them. Okay. Okay, Michael, once you have all your high-end watches, maybe part of the journey of collecting is getting a few better watches. Wouldn't want to take the subway from FP Journe. Yeah, I don't know, FP Journe watches they really are good. They're excellent watches. And so they're way out of my range now. They got after the pandemic, they just sort of went nuts. Uh, and in my case, it turned out to be a pretty good nuts because of somebody crashed into my car. Took my Aura 65 to London on my recent trip. Didn't want to get mugged. Yeah, they got boy, who was that guy in London who got they mugged him pretty good and smacked him around and everything else. I, I think I think he has Rolexes. I'm not sure. That seems to be the popular target. Hey, Mark, how you doing? Thank you. The next Rolex releases will be very divisive, I think. You know, in some ways, they they probably all all are. I think what Rolex has been able to do that I think, beside having fantastic marketing, they they've got sort of this whole line. Like instead of having they they claim, and it could be true or not, that their changes they have so few changes because they feel that it's better to go a gradual change of what is a good sort of foundation movement. So maybe this is supposed to be a new rig on that if they redid the escapement and then put in rubber hairsprings, and they get it'll Rolex, really, Rolex fanatics, they don't get mad for long. They become upset and then converted. It doesn't take a lot. Okay, in my opinion, even the prior 1908 was divisive. I think you're right. A lot of the main client base wasn't digging the classic dress watch. Yeah, uh, it's too bad, I think, because I think that there's so many nice things about. I think the the classic dress watch was sort of there, and I think that the luxury sports watch, starting with the Royal Oak, really brought a lot of flexibility and a lot of excitement to it. The I don't know. It's a shame that they don't. Rolex has so much talent in terms of horological horsepower. So does Patek Philippe. But then it seems to be squandered on the bean counting, okay, for lack of a better term. Nothing wrong with bean counting, honestly. There isn't, because you want to stay in business, and Rolex is good at staying in business and doing quite well. And in order to stay in business, you have to listen to the bean counters. But you don't have to. I mean, it's sort of like, well, should we keep something that has some heritage to it and some real meaning, uh, and save some small amount of money, really, in the long run, or should we throw out these things and go on? There was a story. It was really ridiculous. I think it was a Ford Pinto, maybe. I don't know. There was this car that was made here in the United States that had a gas tank that blew up, and people got toasted in their car. And so there were lawsuits and all kinds of things. And I was reading the engineering specs on it, and it would cost them 50 cents, only one half of $1 for each of those cars to be set with a fuel tank that wouldn't catch on fire. I mean, that was all it would cost them. Just it's really amazing. So it's sort of like, well, we make 1,000,000 cars, and that's $500,000 or something like that. That's the argument they get. Well, that sounds like a lot, but in fact, sort of there was, I don't know, penny wise and pound foolish, I suppose. Hey, Dan. I'm guilty of having several Tudor Rolex Grand Seikos, but lack that high horology prize piece. I'm looking into coordinating upwards and wear only one watch at a time. Not a bad idea. You know, a good starting point from where you are right now might be H. Moser. Might be. Whatever you like. Could be Audemars Piguet, could be Vacheron Constantin, could be even Parmigiani or Chopard. I like the one that Brian just got. I mean, there you got some real horology going on with guys like Armin Strom. You just do, period. Hi, Bellina. Hey, it's going great. Brendan, let's see. What do you have? Natural escapement is to naturalize the anger over oyster quartz coming out again. Oh, man. Hey, JGH. JGH, is that James JGH? Hi, Tim. Wait a minute. I don't think that's the real Tim. Tim, there's always a little icon with all of your comments, and I don't see it now, so we're not sure you're the real McCoy. You could be a folk Tim. Oh, it's down to 20 in Quebec. I like Quebec City a lot. I'm a sports watch fan, so really eyeing the Vacheron content overseas. You know, Dan, the overseas was my first, maybe, well, it wasn't my only, but it was my first one and my most liked one. I love that watch. If you can get your mitts on a six-horned overseas, I think you have a fantastic watch. I really do. Enough for that. Believe it, 2 weeks ago, I went to the FP Journe Boutique in New York again. Great. I got to see the Resonance, Centigraph, Chronomet Optimum, Vertical Tourbillon in person for the first time. It really was great. Yeah, they invited me to some cocktail party or something they're having later this, I think, in sometime in April. I'd really like to go, but it's just sort of not in the cards. They hit me at a busy time. I couldn't afford anything. Well, according to my plans, I couldn't afford anything right now there anyway. So that's another event. Pinto's the one. Is that it? Okay, John, thanks. Boom. Penny pitching is real with big corporation. You know, HRM, there's still though they end up what they figured, and this is why, well, they had to send people to jail or something for doing those kinds of things. I mean, sort of the corporate decisions, they even factored in where to save 50 cents on a potentially exploding gas tank. They figured the lawsuits. They said, well, the lawsuits will figure that in as well. And we're still making money. And I just thought, geez, what a calculus. And I think Rolex was my last hope with their Parachrome hairspring, but I guess, they got the guy saying, wow, this has all of these advantages and blah, 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 blah. No, but they're not even as accurate as a quartz after all of that. I mean, not a new quartz, but an old quartz. I think I got a quartz around here somewhere that hasn't totally rusted through. I could go down to the drugstore and get a new battery for it, and I think it'd outperform them. It'll outperform anything I have too. So all of these things about, well, this is what we should do. Not when we got iPhones and all of these other. Here's my iPhone. This thing, you want to have something accurate. Boom, it's 419. You don't even, with these old eyes, I don't even have to have to look. And so this is the kind of thing. And if I want split second timing, that thing's got more alarms than, a jailbreak. So I don't know. But see, this is the other thing too. Look at the independents, the ones who are in the AHCI. Look what they're doing. They're having fun. They're doing wonderful innovation, and they have the mind for it. For new ideas for existing horology, are sort of taking that horology and making it more interesting in some ways, like a new way to do a repertoire égalité. Somebody comes up and says, "Well, look, we're going to do it this way." One of my favorite watches still, and it's as boring as a schoolroom clock, but is the Jaeger-LeCoultre True Second. Have you seen the way that they have set that thing up for the jumping second? They have a little thing that rewinds. Um, it's not like a remontoire, but it's more like a cocking spring, and when they going through every so many rotations, and this is in a second, within a second, and they have this gizmo that they put together, and it's just so cool. But then they, it wouldn't kill them to have a designer, go in there and make it look a little more interesting than, Mrs. Peabody's fourth grade classroom clock. Yeah, I agree about that Vacheron Constantin patrimony. That is one of those very much overlooked ones. I took a look at it. I'll always have a soft spot for Calatravas. It's just a broken spot for the silicon they're stuffing in there. But the Calatrava was being my first really high horology watch. It was beautiful. It really was. It was just great. It didn't cost me that much. I got an older one, not knowing a thing about them. The thing wound. It was kept perfect time. It was a fantastic watch. And to see them, of all of the ones, and they're I don't know what their output is, something like 50, 60,000 a year. That's okay. Yeah, no, if you look at the specs and some of the other interesting stuff that the independents are doing, you find out a whole different story. And especially these young guys, they got these young guys that are right out of watchmaking school, and they're doing stuff that is just fantastic. Expensive and unavailable. That's the only problem. Can't have everything, I guess. Oh yeah, Balena 123, right. That was a wonderful thing. What they didn't show was that during a break, I went up and talked to him about. I took off my watch, and it's really funny. He took a look at it and whipped out a loop. I mean, he carries a loop like the sheriff of Dodge carries a 6-shooter. So he whips out this loop and he's looking at the old watch and trying to figure out. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh man, he's going to tell me it's a fake. It was the opposite. He said, this is a great example of this watch. Unfortunately, I had to sell it because I got smacked in a car accident, and there was no way that was going to have a happy ending. And the insurance did what they could do, and I got to hand it to them. They were great. And so, I just sort of took the money and bought a new car, but it wasn't anywhere near what the car cost. And so I had to dip into my savings. And so something had to go, and it was my resonance. but that was fine. I really enjoyed it. Dominic and I made our own resonance anyway. We put together that little thing with the brass plate and pushed them together. That was so. Anyway, yeah, you get that was an example of sort of it turned out through no plan of my own of being this incredible investment. And I don't like to buy watches for investment potential, but boy, that one had it like in ways that were unbelievable. By the way, too, if you got a really expensive watch and you want to do well with it, I can recommend um, Phillips. Phillips Auction House, they do fantastic work. I had one with Sotheby's selling, great to sell. The thing that was crazy about it though, when you buy on that, you end up paying this about a 25% what they call premium. Hate that term for that, but that's what you pay. So somebody, sells a watch for $100,000 on the hammer price, the full price will be 125,000. Just crazy. Gotta say though, if you have a really expensive watch and you want to get the most out of it, I would highly recommend Phillips. Okay, enough of that. HRM, the mountaineering overseas. That sounds cool. You're wearing a Rolex Oyster Quartz, the best one. People tend to fixate on things they can measure, like the total cost of making something, effects you can't quantify, so you really may not be adequately considered. Ron Cool, that is a really very, very good statement. There was this Yale professor, he taught economic statistics, I think. And he did some really excellent books on communicating different measures with other than charts and so forth. But he had a blind spot for understanding anything that wasn't quantitative. And this is on a ratio scale. It's like something with an absolute zero. Well, the real world isn't like that. Even thermometers don't have a absolute zero. And so you're right. And I think that's an important thing that a lot of them miss. In my field, some of the best qualitative researchers had backgrounds in science, in statistics, and all of these other ones that are, because I think they realize is that to differentiate one from the other, the important thing is not how many you had or how many differences there are, but the quality of those differences. And that can be something, and that's what makes watch collecting interesting. Oh my goodness. That is one for the grail for me, HRM, but far too expensive. Yeah, Keller, this is thing. What I think it's important to keep in mind what you're thinking. This one watch I was thinking of getting, and a friend of mine, this rotten guy who we both are rotten. We talk each other into spending more money than we should. He was there's this watch, and it's only like about 1,800, something like that, and that's before negotiations. It's he got one, and because I had at my encouragement, and then when he got it, it was better than I thought. So now I'm thinking maybe I ought to get one of those too, but I don't know. Hey, 911, how you doing? Hi, Michael A. it's tough to imagine spending more than, roughly, um, 10,000 really, but who knows? This is another thing. We've talked about this before. I'm not sure if we talked about it in this forum, but my friend and I were talking about how suddenly, if you're gonna spend like a couple $1,000 on a little repair work for the house or something, you go through this major process and all of this comparing and this and that. On the other hand, you see a $2,000 watch. Wow, that's a what a steal that is. And this is something, it's just one of those things. When I used to fly, we had every now and then we get avionics, and those are expensive as all get out. But man, compared to watches, I don't think so. Hi, HRM. I didn't know that Blank Pond has a 7,002. That is sort of interesting. Let's say it's a highly modified Pazoo 7001. How about that? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, should have kept the watch and bought the Pinto. You know something? I'd had that Resonance watch for so long that there was some point where I just wasn't wearing it very much. Um, the I'd wind it up every now and then and turn it over and watch watch it go into resonance. But sometimes it's just certain watches, no matter how much you like them, they have to go. I've had several watches like that. Of course, my Patek Philippe, my Vacheron Constantin. Here's another watch I think it's overlooked, but the neat one is I think it's called the 1972, the year that Vacheron Constantin won the Prestige de Paris. Sorry about the pronunciation. There were 3 different versions of that. I had the second version that was originally made in 1999, and then in 2013, they came out with a really beautiful version of it, and I think it sort of comes and goes, at the Vacheron Constantin. It never was very popular, but I think you can find some they're really cool watches, very dress watches, and they're sort of a more elongated. The thing about those was that for those of you who are familiar with phi is a ratio that's called the golden ratio. And a lot of that went into the 1972, and that was why I liked it. See the 1972 or 74, but that's a Vacheron Constantin. It's an awfully nice one. The one I had was a little small. Had no problem selling it for pretty well. I did well on that one at a Sotheby's auction. So that was allowed me to get sort of like an example of going down, and so then I could buy my watches like my Chaumet, which I just absolutely love. Yeah, killer. It's I mean, numbers are easy. I love numbers. I love math because it's easy. The hard part is the quantitative part. It really is. One of the things we found out is that in watchmaking, like everything else, it's not just the gear ratios and things like that, because they have all kinds of algorithms. If you want to watch with a certain size balance wheel and so many semi oscillations per hour, you can plug it into an algorithm that already exists, and that'll work it out for you. Um, so it's simply sort of a shorthand of doing it the same way that would be done with a pencil and paper, and with quicker. And but it's quantitative essentially. The non-quantitative part is getting a guy who does the math in a good mood. Here you go. This is why AI has so many goofy mistakes. Got no soul. Frying pan time again, John. Thank you, sir. Well, guys, listen, thanks again for putting up with my ramblings, and thank you for the ideas you had. Love to hear those more than my own. So, anyhow, take care. Um, Probably have my unplanned one on Tuesday because it's unplanned. We'll see you then.